I mean, it's common thing
And to our speaker today, Jim Almond, who spent many years following his passion for photography and bird life. He lives here in Shropshire, but today his talk, Golden Birding Moments, ranges far and wide over sea and land, so you can relax and enjoy. Jim Almond, everybody, please welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Wow. I'm used to speaking in a church hall with a tiny 6x6 screen and maybe 30 people. Now, I sometimes get big audiences, but trust me, this is the biggest. This is pretty impressive. I hope you're going to enjoy this. This no holds barred. I'm giving you one of my full-on RSPB bird group, nature group talks. So I hope there's some keen birders amongst you. You'll enjoy some of the birds. And if there aren't, well, hopefully the aim is to inspire. There's a lot of birds out there and a lot of fun to be had watching them, photographing them, and hopefully you'll enjoy this. If we get time, there's a little musical finale at the end, but I've got to sort of accelerate through them to try and get there. So we're going to start off, we see more of this. That you would think with a talk called Golden Birding Moments, that would be a golden eagle. It's not. That's a white-tailed eagle. It's Britain's largest bird. Scotland, you need to go to see them, and we'll see that shortly. Just a brief introduction about me, if you're interested. If you've got several days to sort of waste looking at pictures, then I have a website called Shropshire Birder, and there's also a blog. Everyone keeps a blog nowadays of their activities, so you can see what I'm up to, and lots of pictures within Shropshire. I do a lot of my birding in Shropshire, and occasionally have been known to twitch all over the country or travel to other lands. That's all part of the game. Anyway, the story starts, this is back in 2005 with a blue tit, and this was how I was photographing in those days. I'm a lifelong photographer, but I really wanted to get my teeth into birds, so this was taken just by holding a little digital camera over the telescope eyepiece. It's okay, isn't it? It's a blue tit. If you look at the dark shadowing around the corners, the big netting, that's one of the problems. I wasn't happy, so I bought myself an SLR camera, and it was a little zoom lens, 100 to 400, and the blue tits look something like that then. Yeah, they get a bit better, aren't they? But I still wasn't happy. There isn't a photographer who is happy with their lot. You always want more and better equipment. So I did a bit of wheeling and dealing on eBay, bought myself a 500mm lens, the big things you see at football matches, and the blue tits started to look a bit more like that. So I was sort of happy then, and you still moan about the light, the sort of conditions and stuff like that, but generally you get what you pay for in technical and glass for camera lenses, so don't skimp is my advice when you're buying equipment. Buy the best you can afford. You obviously can't go above your budget. And I wonder why I've got a bad back sometimes, carrying all this stuff around. I have, but that's another story. Anyway, I'm going to start. I first did this talk for a local wildlife group who were celebrating their 50th anniversary, and they wanted, obviously with the name, Golden Birding Moments. So they said, can we have a talk on golden eagles? I said, no. Yeah. Golden eagles are so protected, you can't even get near the mountain, let alone where they nest. So there's my one and only decent shot. It's taken on Mull at Loch na Keal. That is a golden eagle. Impressive, huh? The white-tailed eagle, not that into touch, but there's your golden eagle if you want one. And the first few slides are on the theme of gold. And the birders amongst you may recognise this one. It's a little duckling, but it's the youngster of this particular duck, a golden eye. And they get the name, they aren't golden as such, they have a nice golden yellow eye. And that's you have to get used to ducks having a somewhat unusual appearance between the sexes. Usually, I'm looking at the audience, all the ladies are beautiful and gorgeous, aren't you? See, well, in duck world, the females are a little more drab. They've got to sit on a nest and be exposed. So that's the female, and that's the male. He's quite dapper, isn't he? You know, black and white. So that lovely golden eye shining out. So these are common on the North Shropshire Meres. You occasionally get them at places like Venus Pool, but they prefer deeper water. And for the real connoisseurs amongst you, that's a Barrow's goldeneye. This is a North American bird which occasionally makes it over to the UK, but had to cheat with that one. I photographed that in Vancouver. Here's some familiar territory. I'm sure you all recognise this. They'll come into your garden. You see them all over the countryside. Goldfinch. And always nice to have a bird perched on natural, sort of prop. I hate mossy poles. I hate the sort of your traditional bird photographer sets up a studio with feeders, and that leaves me cold. All the birds you're going to see are truly wild, truly, just doing what they do, and that's what I do. And I wonder how many thistle seeds you've got to eat. There must be, I don't know how many calories there is in one of those, but not a lot, I would think. So that's goldfinch. If you're very, very lucky, a walk up the Longwind, as this happened to me one day, could turn up a golden plover. It does happen. They're quite rare in Shropshire now, but they do occur. And when they're in the summer finery, as the gold really does shine through, doesn't it? The smallest songbird in the UK, of course, is goldcrest. So they're tricky because of their size and their habit. They sort of flit around in usually a dense conifer, so they're very difficult to photograph. But nevertheless, that's a half-decent shot of goldcrest. And another one. You can see how they get the name, can't you? It's, in fact, many names, many sort of birds are named after their appearance. If you've got a gold crest, well, why not be a gold crest? Now this one looks similar, but the sharp-eyed will have noticed there's that prominent eye stripe above the eye, and this is an American bird called a golden-crowned kinglet. So it's a little bit more aristocratic. I don't think one's ever made it over the Atlantic, sadly, to be seen here. And this is a golden-crowned sparrow. So American sparrows are quite exciting. I won't bore you with a talk on sparrows, but it'd be nice to have a golden-crowned sparrow in your garden, wouldn't it? And my last one on the theme of gold is these are very, very scarce. In fact, I don't know of a site where any are breeding now in the UK. This is golden oriole, and I took back at Lakenheath, or back in 2008, I think, and that was roughly the last time there was a chance to see breeding birds. Let's go to Scotland now. I've got a lot of slides to get through. You'll be worn out by the end of this, and that's part of the aim. Birding, if you do it properly, you're travelling, you're having fun, and there's a nice dawn view of the Abernethy Forest in the Highlands, and one of the Britain's scarcest and most enigmatic birds lives there. You've got to be so lucky to see them, and for many years this was the only shot I had. Everyone wanted a shot of capercaillie. I said, well, this is, it's so difficult nowadays. You used to be able to do Loch Garten, an organised sort of viewing at dawn, but even that one, you'd all be sort of looking through a tiny little porthole view in the hide of a bird about 200 metres away, and you'd be convinced it had been nailed to the tree, a plastic one, just to get their money, I suppose. Well, my luck was in 2013 because I finally saw one, and there we are. Well, that's its head. There's its head and a bit of a tail. They're good at hiding, these birds. But eventually, can you imagine a grouse the size of a turkey, and it's got a fearsome reputation. These things will kill dogs, and they'll have a go at killing a human if you upset them. So don't trifle with a capercaillie. I mean, you'd never like to see one nowadays. They really are becoming scarce, but a wonderful bird. Absolutely. I haven't seen one since, which puts that into perspective. They are one of Britain's most difficult birds to see, capercaillie. Now then, if I'm in Scotland, if I've got the chance, the time, I always try and tag on a trip to Mull, either before or after, and this is one of my favourite adventures on Mull. It's a bit of a predictable routine. You go out on a little boat, Some of the eagle nests in the area are well known, and the boat has got a license to do this, will patrol by and toss a fish into the sea or the inland water. And if the birds are, the eagles are lazy, just like lions. If they've got a free handout, they'll take it. So they will come and catch the fish. So you'll see, this might look easy, but I'll tell you, if you've ever tried, this is very, very difficult to photograph these birds, because the boat's rocking, the bird's moving at one heck of a speed. And there it is coming in, and it might just suddenly bank then. This is a large female with the wing tags are just a bit like they do with red kites, so they know which one is which. And there's my title slide. I still can't get over that picture. Blue sky, the bird at the perfect point on the light. It's one of the most, one of my favourite pictures ever. And it's a 1 in a million shot when you go on these trips. If it's cloudy, you'll probably end up with hardly anything worth using. They come down at a breakneck speed. If you've ever been lucky enough to see a peregrine sloop in, they close their wings down and dive down and then suddenly flatten off, because they know where that fish is, even if you can't see it in the water. They'll have spotted it from high up in the sky and pick it up from the water, and off they go. And there we are. Nice to get the banking shot as this one flew away. And then level flight. So if you're ever on Mull, seek out Mull charters. They'll take not too expensive, a little bit of money off you, probably about £25 I think, and you'll have a wonderful trip out on the boat. Next door to Mull is the island of Iona. It's a short ferry trip over, and this is the back of the fire station. If you're ever over there, just remember this, because it's a well-known and really good spot for corncrake. There used to be farmland birds in the UK, or in England, Wales. Sadly, those days are long gone. They haven't got the habitat. They need a sort of unmanaged wild area, which is so scarce nowadays. And when I first saw this one a few years ago, it was a lifetime bird for me. So I'll have to let you into a little ritual here. Every time I see a bird I've never seen before, a lifer, I get a Tunnocks tea cake. So it's my little celebration. Crikey, there's so many in this. Every time I do this talk, there's a spike in the sales of Tunnocks tea cakes the following day, because you all remember how good they are. Don't buy the cheap tea cakes. It's got to be Tunnocks. I don't get a penny for saying this. Trust me. So there we are, even better, corncrake out in the open. You hear them all day long, at night. Don't sort of camp in an area where they frequent, because you won't sleep. You'll just hear these things going all day. And I've been lucky, several trips have allowed me to get them, within the 10-metre zone. You don't approach them. If you're lucky, they just walk by you, and they don't get much closer than this, do they? You can almost focus on the eye. So there we are, that's corncrake. An idyllic shot of the Cairngorms in the Highlands. And see those mountain tops, those snow-covered tops, even in May and into early June, there's still lots of snow up the top, and that's where we're going to go next. And there's an easy way. You can go up the funicular railway, and the much more sort of sensible way to do it is to walk. It's not that difficult from the ski station, and just find your way up on the plateau, right past the station at the top there, and you might be lucky enough to see one of these. This is a ptarmigan, and it's probably one of the most iconic of the Scottish birds. I always sort of try and seek them out if I'm there. That's the male. In his winter plumage, he's pure white, but I quite like the summer plumage, where it's a bit of a mixture. And that's the female. Again, I think she's quite attractive, actually, and she has to sit on all that vegetation. You can imagine. Now, I've never seen one at the nest, but that's exactly how she would blend in with the surroundings. So there's male ptarmigan, and what they characteristically do is you always see them at the horizon. They always stand on a rock and announce their presence, I suppose. Lots of people can see them, so that's a typical. You often see it in silhouette a fair distance away, but that's probably about as good as it gets. And if you're lucky, and there's two, these are taken in May when they're setting up territories, and two having a bit of a spa, they might do unpredictable things. And they actually landed on a snow flurry just in a gorge just by where I was sitting, and had the the sheer joy then of seeing a summer plumaged ptarmigan dashing through the snow to attack its rival. So there we go, ptarmigan, and there's on a cloudy day a view from the top. Another bird you might see up there, of course, is dotterel. This is a wading bird. You never see them on estuaries or sort of shallow water. They're always as breeding birds in the north of Scotland or England. But this is a bird you don't have to go to Scotland to see. We've been lucky enough, every year there's a good chance of them turning up on the Longmont, and the glider station is a particularly good place to see them. So that was in May 2011. There was 2 on the glider station the weekend before last. So you can be lucky, and aren't they gorgeous? That is one heck of a bird, and that's the female. This is one species of bird where the female is the more attractive. Why not, eh? Got that lovely head pattern and a nice dark mark on the belly. I could never tire of seeing these. This one's the male. He's pretty attractive as well, but not quite as good as the female. Now, as I was taking these photographs, what I haven't explained is I'm sat in my car on the middle of the glider station runway. Not as well. I'm there very early, so they're not flying, but you shouldn't be there. I've got permission to go on there occasionally for certain birds at the back of the glider station, but I was a bit panic-stricken when I saw this lady marching across the runway towards me, and I thought, uh-oh, I'm going to get told off here, and cowered down in my car, sort of carried on clicking away, and she came over and said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Oh, I'm photographing these dotterel. They're quite rare, and we need some shots for the record, etc." And she said, "Well, it's very cold up here. Would you like some breakfast?" So, into the glider station cafeteria, if you like. It was too early for a pint of lager, I think, but I think I settled for the glider's baguette, and oh wow, what a start to the day. So, birding can turn up some interesting moments. Well, you can see swans anywhere. Here's some cute shots of birds that you see locally, and that isn't quite how you want them. I haven't quite managed the complete heart shape, but that's not far off, is it? And mute swans are birds you can see everywhere, and they're quite protective as parents. There's one mantling the chicks, cygnets, during a shower of rain. Spotted flycatchers, these are fresh in now if you're a birder, and the Bridges Walk down by the youth hostel, I went down there yesterday, there's at least 2, possibly 3 pairs along that little stretch of roadway, and in a couple of months' time you'll see them like that, hopefully with their young somewhere. And this is a willow warbler. Now then, gentlemen, I wouldn't encourage you to do this. This is courtship in bird world. They literally stand on a branch and just flap their wings like that. But don't try it in a pub. You'll probably get thrown out. It doesn't work. A green woodpecker, the innocence of youth. They feed on ants, and no one's told this youngster here that that you don't find them in the middle of the dead stems of plants. But I reckon there's an ant or 2 in there. That's where that tongue is seeking them out. And grebes. Well, we're going to cover some grebes in this talk. This is great crested grebe, probably the most commonly seen in Shropshire. Virtually all of the larger pools and waters will have them. And don't you just love it with those chicks on the back? Isn't that sweet? And they sometimes get thrown off, and they all just sort of pile onto their parent, and it's almost like you're in the sea or the swimming pool, isn't it? Messing around with the kids or grandkids. At the other end of the size spectrum is little grebe. These are tiny, cute little birds, and there's an adult with its youngster. They train them to catch fish. They'll often catch a little fish, let it go, and make the youngster chase it. That's how they sort of engage in their first little bit of hunting. Oh, but just sweetness, aren't they? There's a rare breed of grebe which we rarely see in Shropshire, and I've never seen one in Shropshire. I had to jump over the border to Worcestershire to take this particular photograph. That's a Slavonian grebe, and they like perch. And I think perch one of the most colourful of fishes, so it's nice to have a gorgeous Slavonian grebe, as you see there, with a perch in its bill. And if you're wondering what a Slavonian grebe's tongue looks like, it's something like that. No, it's a fish's tail. Now these birds are notoriously tricky to identify in their winter plumage. They go this sort of black and white coloration. Would you believe this same bird 2 months later is going to look like this? That is the same species. That's a Slavonian grebe seen in Scotland in May. So yeah, they're totally different in their summer plumage. Now then, I'm going to go back to showing you a great crest. You'll love this one. This is tell you a little story as we start, because some of you will have seen the films Crocodile Dundee. Yeah, one of those films that never goes away, isn't it? And there's a scene where he gets attacked in the subway, and a mugger pulls a knife on him, and he looks at it with disdain as he pulls out this great big sabre and says, "Call that a knife? This is a knife." Well, I've got a great crested grebe looking at this one saying, "Call that a fish? This is a fish." Brings tears to your eyes, doesn't it? I never tire of showing this because you don't know what's going to happen, but you can sense because something's going to happen, can't you? Can I put you the challenge? Is it going to eat it? It can't possibly swallow that, can it? Well, it's going to have a damn good go. Yes, I was watching these neck muscles pulsing as that fish was drawn inexorably in and in and in, and then eventually it was gone. So how do you celebrate after a nice satisfying meal? Waxwings. Well, did you see waxwings this winter? It's been the best one ever, so that was your golden chance. And you don't go to nature reserves to see waxwings, you go shopping. You see them at retail parks, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, all those berry trees, sorbus trees that they traditionally have there. And they sometimes have a bit of a tug of war with the berries. If you seek out the ornamental white ones, it can create a nicer picture. And if you're lucky enough, you can get the moment that the berry is tossed in the mouth, in the bill, so you get this illusion of it just sitting there in mid-air. And I was lucky, I remember a lunch break when I was working at Royal Shrewsbury Hospital. I spotted these birds from my office window. I know I shouldn't have been doing that, should I? Over on the hedgerow, and went over there. The sorbus berries had all gone, and they were eating rose hips, would you believe? What a sight. But as a photographer, you're always looking for something different, and the winter of 2010-11 certainly gave you that. This was a real cold. Look at those icicles never went away all day, and here we have another group of waxwings. Now, against the grey sky and in these cold conditions, they're quite cold photographs, but nevertheless, I think when you've got the colour of them, as you see there, it's certainly something different. And as all these berries were dropping off the sorbus tree, basically they'd almost stripped the tree. They were then trying to find the berries on the snow, and then, if all else fails, under the snow. It's a shot you've probably never seen before. I've never seen them hunting for berries in the snow, but there we go. But maybe the best shot was this particular one, where it ended up being the cover of a magazine. The frost on the berries, and just a nice clean background. It's a house in the background, actually, so it just shows what a long lens will. It puts the background out of focus, so you can enjoy the bird. Oh, I remember going out that particular winter. You had probably about 2 to 3 weeks when it didn't get above zero, and some of these days were it was minus double figures, minus 10. And would you fancy putting your bill down in that water in those temperatures? Well, this is a common snipe, and they've got antifreeze in their parts, and just get in there and right in there. That's where the food is. The water's still 0 degrees, so it's probably warmer there than being in a cold field. And I couldn't resist this mandarin just sitting in the icicles on the River Severn near Bridge North. So there's always something to see. In fact, I always think the worst day to go out birding and taking photographs is on a nice sunny day. You don't get the opportunities that you seem to get with these vile, cold or rainy days. Have you all been to the Farne Islands? All right. Well, there's a treat in store. You can have a nice holiday in the northeast. Stay in sea houses, book early because it's always a busy place. There's the idyllic little fishing village, and I'd recommend Billy Shields as the boat trip. You'll find lots of these little booths. Happy to take your money. Billy Shields geared up for bird watchers, and they'll land you on the islands for several hours, whereas some of the others will whiz you on and off, and you don't get quite the same service. And you don't need all the long lens gear that I've been showing you. You can. That was my first trip. I took all this and regretted it. You've got to carry it around then. So a small lens is perfect. And you have wardens on the Farne Islands who are there, National Trust. They're based there permanently to make sure no one goes across the ropes and things like that. And you can always tell how long they've been there by this is a newcomer, After a year on there, you've got a completely white hat. The terns are merciless. Don't go there without some sort of headwear if it's June, July, because you're a threat to them. So they come and attack you basically. So just be prepared for that. Wear a hat, not a knotted handkerchief. By the way, I did see someone doing that. And that really just served to mop up the blood that they There's an Arctic tern with juvenile. It's nice, to see all these sort of happy families of terns when they're not attacking you. And this is the reason they got their young, and you could be a threat to them. You regularly see 4 species of terns on the Farne Islands, so you have to do a bit of ID. They're quite easy actually. This is a sandwich tern, and they eat fish, not sandwiches. And it's basically got a black bill with a yellow tip, and looks slightly bigger. And there's 4 species of tern in that photograph. We haven't got time to go through the niceties, but at the back middle we've got sandwich tern. Just to its right, I've got to make sure it's the same way around for you, is a common tern. And the one bottom left is an Arctic tern. And the one right in the middle is a roseate tern, a real rarity. So it's nice to get 4 species in one photograph. And as I've been known to twitch, this is the famed bridal tern, which turned up there, isn't that? A few years ago. And that was certainly my first ever experience of bridal tern. So, yeah. I won't overdo it. You won't get too many of these. It's bad. The problem is nowadays, bird photography has become a very level playing field. Camera equipment is still expensive, but everyone seems to have a camera. So just be aware of this. Popular places are popular with photographers, and here's the aviorazzi, as I would like to call them, and all taking the same picture. Usually of 1 puffin. Or 4 puffins, it doesn't really matter. Think out the box. Always try and, don't take photographs where everyone is. Try a different angle. Try and, look for shots which, look for the background that makes the bird ping out. You don't want all the clutter of other puffins maybe. So that one, it's a different shot, head on, and you can see all the detail and the colour of the bill, etc. Maybe add a few fish. Again, that's a fairly easy shot to get. They do bring fish in, but look out for the one that dilly-dallies and poses for you. Even better, they fly at about 40 miles an hour. Try and get a photograph of them flying over your head with the fish in focus in their bill. Now that does take some doing. And if you want to sort of capture what, their lifestyle, what's going on, as they come in with these fish, they get mugged and attacked by all the gulls. You never see that in photographs, do you? But this is the reality. This is the hard life of, trying to get those fish back into their chicks. A lot of them don't make it. They don't get killed or anything, but they often lose all those fish. And preening birds are quite useful to photograph. That's a pretty mundane shot, just preening its wing. But you sometimes get shots that make you smile somehow. This is almost like it's shedding a tear, isn't it? Mopping a tear away. And it was a really hot day on this particular day in the month. That was a very popular one as well. So you might think a bird just sitting there preening is boring, but it can give you some interesting shots. And a landscape lens on the farms will show you the whole seabird colony. And this is a kittiwake. It sounds, it's named after the name, and it's quite sweet when you hear it called the first time. Kittiwake, kittiwake. If you go to Newcastle on Tyne, they sort of breed on the bridges there. You'll be hearing them at night. So again, pick a hotel away from the time. And when they're in flight, beautiful. I quite like gulls, but we're not going to dwell too much on them. Those black tips of the wings, yellow bill, it's a lovely bird. And there's the underwing. So these are easy shots with a short focal length camera. The fulmar, another common bird there. It makes a change from the terns, doesn't it? And here they all come. Common Arctic terns. That's a common tern, who always has a red bill with a black tip. And this gentleman here has got the right idea. You know, this is the ideal, a flat cap which is baggy. You know, they can pierce through there, but they can't quite find your scalp. So that keeps you, pain free. We're going to have a quick trip to Vancouver now. Oh, this is just looking at a few shots from a bird trip I had there back in 2008, and the woodpeckers there are a bit different to ours. And in the woodpecker family is this northern flicker, very colourful, spotted and nicely marked bird. And some of the birds there we don't get, of course, in the UK. Hummingbirds, for instance, and these were taken in the winter. And this is the hardiest of the hummingbirds, Anna's hummingbird. It's smaller than a goldcrest, tiny. They only weigh about 3 grams. This is the hummingbirds are some of the smallest birds in the world, but quite feisty. They'll come and hover in front of you like an angry bee. And I was aiming this one when they sort of adjust the feathering of that throat. It turns bright scarlet, and that was the shot I was trying to get. But all I got was the tongue initially. That is a hummingbird's tongue, designed to get in tubular flowers. But eventually, my luck was in, and there we are. They do it at will, and it's a sort of threat display, so that was meaning, go away. So I did. Into this lovely little, almost tropical-looking woodland called Mystic Vale, and this was the last day of my trip. I'd seen distantly one particular woodpecker that had eluded me the rest of the trip, so my aim was to try and catch up with it here on this last chance day. And imagine a woodpecker the size of a crow, and this is a pileated woodpecker, incredible woodpecker, and it sort of landed within range, as you see there, to take a picture, and then proceeded to demolish a log almost in front of me in search of ants. They've got such a jackhammer-like action and bill. In theory, they should knock themselves out, but they have a membrane in their skull to keep them conscious. And before no time, this log was reduced to sawdust, so it was an incredible moment. And these are notoriously shy birds. To get that close to one, absolutely incredible. Pileated woodpecker. And some of the ducks are quite dapper as well. This is hooded merganser. Just had his hair done to attract the ladies. And if we're talking lovey-dovey on the bird world, these are wood ducks. And if we get the two together, this next shot would be the perfect Valentine's Day card, wouldn't it? Is everyone still awake? Excellent. I'm now going to, just in case anyone was nodding off, this is one. This is a notice board. It just shows the warning, the humour in British Columbia. Anyway, due to the frequency of human-bear encounters, the British Columbia Fish and Wildlife Branch is advising hikers, hunters, fishermen and persons that use the out-of-doors in a recreational or work-related function to take extra precautions in the field. So, you with that? We advise the outdoorsman to wear little noisy bells on the clothing so as to give advance warning to any bears that might be close by, so you don't take them by surprise. We also advise anyone using the outdoors to carry pepper spray, just in case of an encounter with a bear. Outdoorsmen should be also on the watch for fresh bear activity and be able to tell the difference between black bear feces and grizzly bear feces. Black bear feces is smaller and contains lots of berries and squirrel fur. Grizzly bear shit has bells in it and smells like pepper. I was told you'd like that one. Pushing it to the limit there. Now then, there's a bird that visits the UK in the summer. They're here now. They come with the swallows. They eat them basically, but when they're not catching swallows, hobbies catch flies. And if you've never seen one, take a moment. Wixle Moss is a good place to see them. Venus Pool later in the year, they'll be catching dragonflies there. There's such an aerodynamic, and it's a bit like the fighter plane of the bird world. They'll loop up and down reed beds catching orca dragonflies, and then sometimes they land and consume them. They'll, as you see here, bite the wings off. There's a wing just about to disappear, and then before long fly off again. Hobby in full flow. They've got these red socks, as they're called, just around the legs, so you can see always gives it away, that reddish patch on the underside of the bird. And you can see there in the talons, he's clutching something. And this is what they do when they don't land with these orca dragonflies. They just glide along on the wind and eat them, as you can see there. So there's a sequence of a dragonfly about to be and then consumed on the wing. That's saving energy, isn't it? Peregrines. Well, these are breeding at the moment now. I'm a coordinator of the local peregrine group, so I do a lot of work with them. And peregrines are spreading nationwide quite dramatically. And you may or may not know this, but we did have them briefly for 1 year breeding in Shrewsbury town centre. You recognise that, don't you? St Mary's. And if you look at the steeple, there's a flat part below there. They actually managed to create in their sort of world, a little scrape or eyrie where they could breed. And if you see higher up on the steeple, there's a couple of parapets over the windows there. And there we are. There's the female. There she is, just to prove it. Peregrines in town centre of Shrewsbury. And there's the male on the other side. And why are they there? Why have they decided? Well, Shropshire doesn't have too much in the way of mountainous or quarry habitats. They've used up. There's already breeding birds there. So churches and cathedrals give you a good view of what might be on view down below. And it's a win-win situation in a sense, because the council has problems with feral pigeon populations, and the peregrines love them. There's only one minor problem, and everyone was always happy with these peregrines being here, apart from the local vicar. And if you see what that peregrine is holding there, a sort of carcass, gravity being what it is, and the main door is just below this window. Yes, I do believe someone had a near miss with one sort of coming down just before evensong, so do be careful entering church. But they've gone away. I don't know if that's anything to do with the vicar not liking them, but there we go. Perhaps he said his prayers. Anyway, these are wild peregrines now. The others were, but these are taken out in Shropshire under, I would stress, Schedule 1 licence. You can't go and photograph birds like this at the nest without the appropriate licence. So there she is approaching her eggs. And I've been lucky enough to capture the moment where the actual egg has just hatched. So in this shot here, you can see where that little tiny chick has just emerged from the cracked open egg. Isn't that amazing? In a few hours' time, that white stuff will fluff out to become downy chicks, and they're about a week old. And this is almost like the family portrait, isn't it? As they get older, the true feathers start to appear, and they look a little bit like punks at this age, don't they? You cross the road, and there they are, being fed. They're quite social birds. If you watch some of the TV documentaries about buzzards, etc., the big one will throw all the smaller chicks out of the nest. But with peregrines, they just stand in a line, and as you can see there, quite good-natured, get fed one at a time by the parent. And it takes them 6 weeks from hatching out to be, as you see there, the fully grown and ready to fledge fine machine. And Shropshire has a real claim to fame. We're the only place in the UK that has a pair of peregrines that routinely lay their eggs in a crow's nest. It's not done anywhere else. And because there's so many peregrines about now, we do ring some of them to try and track their movements. And this one here, if you can read that colouring, it's a Darvic ring on the leg, is T2. And this particular bird was originally, she's a female by the way, the mother of these chicks at the nest. She was originally ringed as a male, so it shows ringers can get it wrong, at Worcester Cathedral 3 years earlier. So we know, where she is now, and obviously let them know. It's always good to see how far these birds are moving. And there she is flying around, and once again the ring is quite clearly visible there. So a happy mother in Shropshire. Oh, it's nice to have a few foxgloves just to soften the image. These are quite sort of cruel, lethal birds that kill on sight if they need to. They will only catch and eat fresh meat. They won't rely on roadkill or anything like that. But when these youngsters take to the air, you get these moments where they fly in perfect harmony, maybe doing a pretend food pass. And this shows the trust in the mother. That is a male peregrine fledgling, and look at the difference in size between that one and the female parent. He is much smaller. He's fully grown. Just be aware that male peregrines are about 2/3, or sometimes they appear half the size of the female. Right, we're going to go back to birds that you might recognise now, and this is the bird you would not normally see in Shropshire, the heron, the common heron, the grey heron. And did you know they do yoga? I don't know what position that is, at the lotus position, but it looks quite good. And they sometimes look up old friends, and this is they sometimes as you can see there, that's a carp being swallowed. When you get close to these birds, this is taken at Venus Pool, by the way, you don't just photograph the bird, you photograph and identify the fish that's being swallowed. But I love herons, and sort of chase them wherever I've been in the UK when there's a rarity, or overseas. So here's a few other herons. Now this is a night heron, a juvenile. Now I wonder if we have any birders in the audience. Did you realise, you're all going to go twitching after this talk or in the next few days, did you realise we've got a night heron in the dingle in Shrewsbury? And if you don't, and some of you obviously saying yes, so just go and have a walk around the dingle. Go around the pool, look for the crowd of people, or just look on the vegetation for a smart looking heron. This is it. This is the taken a couple of weeks ago down in the dingle. And it is quite obliging, as you can see there. Gorgeous bird with a bright red eye, well worth seeing. And throughout the county I've seen some other birds. This is a purple heron. That was a lucky moment when it flew over my head. And there it is on a canal towpath. I've also seen them elsewhere. This was taken on Anglesey. It's a rare bird in the UK, but nevertheless you can find them with a little bit of chasing about. A squacco heron. And again, catching a perch. Oh, isn't that nice? My favourite fish, and in amongst all the sort of debris on this stream, it really is the bird in its favoured habitat. And I had to go down to the Lost Gardens of Helligan to photograph this green heron, which had flown the Atlantic and ended up in Cornwall. But just going to the States, we'll sort of introduce you to one or two of the herons there, and this is little blue heron, which is, as the name implies, lots of blue on it, and a very attractive bird. And the tricoloured heron, that's a juvenile, it hasn't quite developed its true colours. But if you want colourful birds, then New England is full of them. And we've seen golden oriole, this is Baltimore oriole. It's a variation on the thing. That combination of orangey yellow and black is absolutely superb, isn't it? And all the warblers there are so colourful. They're not like our slightly little drab, little brown jobs. You get colourful warblers like this one. This is chestnut-sided warbler. The name again describes the bird. And indigo bunting, the most indescribable blues, and belting out its song there, absolute must-see. And if you've got a garden and you put up a box, then you get these little boring jobs. How would you like bluebirds in your garden? Yeah. Amazing. And rose-breasted grosbeak. Looks as it's just been shot, doesn't it? And, if you understand your German, then grosbeak indeed. It does have a real powerful bill, just like a hawfinch actually. And if these are leaving you cold, then how about northern cardinal? These are what would be coming to your... You're thinking of moving to New England? You have these birds. And the cutest of them all is this one, tufted titmouse. But don't rush there. When you suddenly realise the enormity of the tick problem there, then you might think twice. But there we go. Elsewhere, in the wilds in New England, I managed to photograph this willet. This is probably the only North American wader that has never flown the Atlantic. Will it or won't it? And this is sitting on a board. And it's the only wader to this day that I've ever seen perched on top of a conifer. They just don't do this. They sit in water. That's more like it. This is least sandpiper, the smallest wader on the planet. And these were running around my feet, giving incredible shows. That is only the size of a sparrow, believe it or not. Smallest wader in the world. And these are frequently mistaken, would you believe? When you see one of these in isolation, you're thinking, is it a lesser or a greater yellowlegs? Well, just look at the difference when they're together. So that is the ID shot, which really tells you in no uncertain terms, greater and lesser yellowlegs. Now then, most people take traditional shots with the sun behind them, maximum shutter speed in case the subject moves, but why not be creative like this one, showing this water rail? It's a very slow shutter speed, almost by accident, but I quite like the effect where the head and bill is in focus, but the rest of the body isn't. Do you like it? No? All right. For those that didn't, there's the traditional shot, everything's sharp and in focus. We could try a heron, taking about 1,000th of a second. You've just about frozen the wings. The bird, is quite still. The head will be still. Change that shutter speed to about half a second, and you get something like this. See, so this is creative photography. Think about this when it doesn't always work though, because I was photographing this grey wagtail and I wanted to get the motion of the water, and sadly the bird moved more than the water, and I got this. So it doesn't always work. And I was photographing this flock of waders in Norfolk. I wanted to get them all in focus, so I set the camera this is all going to get technical now, the f-stop to f32, which basically means you get a lot of depth of field but hardly any shutter speed. So that's how they looked, and then they all took off, and it looks something like this. But I like it. I particularly like this one, because you can still see the sharp stationary birds, but the rest is controlled mayhem. Do you like it? Yeah. Yes, that ought to win a photo competition, didn't it? But took it too long ago. If you like the standard frozen sharp birds, then this is a shot taken a few moments later when I adjusted it. So there we go. And taking a fast shutter speed will freeze the action. So all these droplets on this turnstone bathing, like ice droplets, don't they? It's incredible how water just turns into this strange substance. And this knot washing behind its ears. Or a grey phalarope being knocked over by a wave. Well, mini wave at that. And sticking with the grey phalarope thing, some of you would never even have heard of a grey phalarope. It's a small wading bird that usually lives out at sea for much of its life. And the North Atlantic in the autumn is our best chance of them getting driven inland or to shore by strong westerly or northwesterly winds. And I was I had my eye on the news services in November 2009, and one actually got blown to Crosby Marine Park. So this is just north of Liverpool. And somewhere on that little pool is a grey phalarope, and you can see the little crowd of birders, and you can sense where it might be, can't you? So I thought I'd photograph them. I always think to do this because to me the habitat and then the scene around whatever you're doing is part of the day, it's part of the scenery, and that might come in handy, I thought, when I took this photograph. If you look in the water, you can just about see the bird. Yeah? So there it is, got my ordinary camera out now to photograph it. I wasn't really happy with these. It's a nice phalarope, but notice how it's a bit sort of, doesn't really ooze contrast and doesn't look bright. There's no catchlight in the eye. That's because the sun is behind clouds. Now, a few minutes later, the sun came out. Look at the difference. And now you've got those droplets, the reflection. It's all suddenly becoming a much nicer bird. And there we are. There's a close-up. But maybe too close. This was my favourite. It was the perfect shot on the day. Nice reflection. And it went off to Birdwatch magazine and they used it on the cover. Isn't that nice? And it took another year. They were asking for a picture that was evocative for November, and I sent in this one, and look what got used. The big picture. So don't forget, people are just as important sometimes to magazines as the subjects of the hobby, whether it's birds, planes, boats, or whatever, that you'll always find room for people in pictures. Well, that's the boat being, the small boat being taken out for the boat I'm about to go on. It's a 50-foot vessel which I'm going to go out in the open Atlantic off the Scillies. I do this every year, mad or what. And it doesn't matter what the weather's going to do, and the main thing is you must have a big breakfast. This is the real requirement. And talk about scary. I was there in August 2014, and this is Hurricane Bertha. Remember that? It was a real sort of unseasonal and nasty bit of a blow. And just look where the Scilly Islands are, in between the most likely. And the wind strength as we got to the harbour was absolutely, it was blowing the water flat there. Don't be lulled into thinking what the open sea was like. It was 10-metre plus waves. And there's the weather chart. Down on the Scillies, the breezes were just about 70 miles an hour. But, we went out. The skipper had the right idea. He said, we'll just go round the island and then drift in the lee of the island. We won't catch the wind. Sound sensible? Do you like the idea of drifting, near hurricane force wind? Don't get the illusion of what the waves are actually like. They were like houses, 10, 12 metres. But the boat just goes up like a cork on them, so you just float over. And why are you out there? It's for all the seabirds you never see from land. These are storm petrels, tiny little swallow-shaped sized birds that just pitter-patter on the water and pick their food up. So think of a swallow or house martin that's happy on the sea. And there again, another one. Corey's shearwater, a bird never seen from land. And great shearwater, fantastic birds. Pomerine skewer, that's a youngster, and there's the adult. So there we go. I'll just check for, are we doing all right? I was just checking the time. 5 minutes, so we're just going to eat into slightly. The musical thing will probably start at about past. So here's a set aside, and this is an area of land you rarely see nowadays. Some people who own land, and ideally some people in the farming community will do this. Leave a field totally set aside where nothing will be done to cultivate it, no chemicals, and within a couple of seasons you end up with a perfect haven for small mammals, insects, small birds, and then you'll get birds of prey, a real food chain building up. And short-eared owls were frequenting this particular set aside. It's a bird you can see in Shropshire sometimes of the year, but not as good as this. These were day flying because there were so many of them, so they had to hunt in the day to actually get their prey. And wow, how's that for a shot of short-eared owl? And you don't have to go far to enjoy exciting birds. This is Venus Pool on my birthday in February 2015. And what a birthday. This is a hen harrier. And very rare bird nowadays. You can't avoid the newspaper headlines about them being, how shall we say, managed on grouse moors. Sadly, the hen harrier's traditional breeding habitat is a grouse moor. He's not going to, or she is not going to change their habits just because people choose to want to shoot things on there. So it's lucky to see one at Venus Pool here, just travelling through. That's what they do in the winter. It's a female. And there we are, just patrolling the arable field at Venus Pool. My birthday treat indeed. So there we are, the local hen harrier. And the only people who weren't, or the only creatures that weren't happy were the local reed buntings. There's one, if you look carefully, just being carried away there in the talons of that particular bird. So it's bad news for some, but this is the reality with birds. But you'll never see them so well as on Mull. And there's no pressures on them there, no persecution. There's a male, a bird that you certainly rarely see in the UK now. The female, and I was lucky enough to encounter the moment where the male catches some food, the female flies up to meet him, and catch the food from him and take it back to the chicks at the nest. And that's the moment where the small prey is about to be passed. See, it's now in the female's talon, and there we are. She turns away to go back to the nest. So there we go. Oh, right. Do you want a little musical finale? I think we're bang on time, and there'll still be time for some questions after if you wish. So we tried this before. It should work. Sit back and enjoy. Happy to do any questions. Yes, sir. Well, you can't do everything, and I must admit, having had several sort of unsavoury adventures with ticks, and you know, there's so many places to go and see birds that you don't have to, go in a jungle and all the hassle that you've got with, sort of humidity and problems with camp. I tend to bird fairly. Most of my, I'm not really a photographer. I'm not after a world bird list. I'm just sort of going out watching birds, trying to see as many in the UK as I can. That's my biggest challenge in life. So the emphasis is on the UK, but no, I know you couldn't show everything. Yeah. Oh, I know Costa Rica. Everyone goes there nowadays, and Gambia. Yeah, the world's your oyster. You can, and if you want to, see several thousand birds, then start young. I don't think anyone in this room is going to get a big world list. You could spend your whole life doing it. Any else? I covered everything. Oh, yes.
You spend quite a few, this time, quite a few visits to the Almond. Do you see curlews?
Yes, but there's a project going on at the moment. In fact, I had one calling over my head yesterday. I was walking in the Bridges Valley, the Darnford Brook there. Yeah, you'll hear them on the Longwind, you'll hear them on various areas, you'll see them quite throughout the county through the winter. There was a small group most of the winter on the West Midlands Showground. They turn up in unlikely places, but they're not all breeding, and they're not all Shropshire birds. It's a really threatened bird at the moment, and if you look online, you'll find there's projects to try and work out why they're going, where they're going, and try and halt the decline. That they, in a few years, if they carry on, they'll have gone as breeding birds in Shropshire, a bit like golden plovers on the precipice as well. Yes.
Does that apply also to our garden birds because of all the building around Shrewsbury?
No, not really. That doesn't, because garden birds are what garden birds are. They build a new house and then they'll move into the gardens. The key thing with having garden birds is vegetation and cover and somewhere for them to breed. And many of our birds will use the house. House martins, house sparrows, they'll sort of breed in and around your house. But
about the cuckoo, haven't heard the cuckoo.
Yeah, cuckoo is.
This last
Yeah, they turn up all over the place, but not in Shropshire anymore. It's one of the mysteries why. Well, no, I can tell you where they all are, and I'm going there next week. Scotland. Go to Scotland, and you'll be treading on cuckoos. They're everywhere, and for some strange reason, birds, and we're seeing them doing this in a real sort of short window of time, change their migration habits. Now, it could have something to do with flying over Malta at the moment is a bad thing to do. You know, very few birds make it. You know, it's just a catastrophe what happens in some of the Mediterranean. They just shoot them for fun and things like that. So they now seem to go. They are in Shropshire. Go to Wixham Moss, and I can guarantee you'll hear one. You know, they're on there. But they're not everywhere as I remember, and I'm sure you all do. You'd be walking to school, or it was the sound of spring, wasn't it? Have you heard a cuckoo? Of course you have. You hear it from your house. But no, they're not in great numbers in Shropshire. They're not in decline. They're just in different places. That's the difference with them. Yes, sir.
Do you ever apply any digital effects to your photos, or is that a hanging offence?
Hanging offence. But the only processing I do is a little bit of sharpening, and maybe, you know, if it's I'll traditionally underexpose a picture to get maximum shutter speed sometimes, so a little bit of brightening. But no, I mean, some people spend more hours of the day playing with Photoshop rather than taking the pictures themselves. I'd sooner be, just spending my time enjoying the hobbies or doing talks. This is the other thing I have to do now, and it's a hard job, but someone's got to do it. I think we're near. You'll all be getting parking tickets unless I go.
Yes, I was going to ask you, Jim, whether you were in favour of feeding wild birds in the garden or not. But maybe we should leave that for a debating society.
I can give a very quick answer. Feed them during the winter when they need it, and don't in the summer.
Okay, that's great. Well, how about that for raising photography to the level of art, drama and music? Brilliant. And educating me too. I had no idea that this hobby has become a verb, to bird. I had no idea that a birder was not a young lad who was popular with the girls. But I'm educated now, and I find it a thrilling time. Can we please show our appreciation for Jim Almond?